On Monday, Major League Baseball handed down several suspensions to big-name players in relation to the biogenesis clinic in Miami that was discovered to be selling performance-enhancing drugs to professional athletes, mostly Major League Baseball players. The first star or casualty was Milwaukee Brewers' Ryan Braun, who's already been suspended for the rest of the season, and that was taking place earlier last month. However, in the light of the findings at the biogenesis clinic, 13 other players have been suspended, and 12 of them are going to face 50-game suspensions. And because their names were on the list and because there are links to them using these drugs, they've decided not to appeal. The majority of them are not going to appeal. You know, guys like Nelson Cruz of the Rangers and Johnny Peralta of the Tigers, they've owned up their mistakes and are moving on. They're serving out their suspensions, coming back when they can play. However, the highest paid player and its most polarizing star, Alex Rodriguez, will not be amongst them. The Yankees' third baseman was not suspended for 50 games, but for a Major League Baseball numerical record, 211. His suspension was harsher than other players for several reasons, and I want to get into that into my next bit because there are just so many questions surrounding this case. Because you have, did he do this or did he do that? You got his personality involved, his polarizing figure, he's coming off injuries, this and that. But there really are three questions I think really can surround this case and kind of sum it up in a way that everybody, can understand it. And here's the first one. A lot of people think, particularly Yankees fans, and even people close to Rodriguez that care for him, say he's being singled out as the face of this investigation. Do I agree with that? Actually, no, I don't. You could say that because, he's been the big name, because other guys like Peralta and Cruz you haven't really heard much about. But I don't think he really is, because there's a reason. The guys I just mentioned, Peralta and Cruz, they accepted their suspensions. They know what they did. They fessed up. They understood their mistakes. They're going to come back when they can play again, and they've moved on. 50 games, and that's it. They never attempted to cover their tracks, and that's why the Major League Baseball committee was softer and lighter on their suspensions. However, guys like Ryan Braun and A-Rod, on the other hand, they denied their links to the clinic. I mean, Braun eventually cracked under the pressure, but A-Rod, he went to great lengths to cover up his tracks. He's not saying anything. He's not negotiating. He's not admitting that he knew anything about this, which just shows the supreme arrogance of Alex Rodriguez. That even in the face of obvious doom, he's still just not owning up to any of the dumb things he did. The other question you could say is, the ban too harsh or too lenient? And I say, hell yeah, it was too lenient. They let him off way too easy. I mean, 211 games. I mean, yeah, that's a lot. That's a season and a half. That's a season and a quarter, pretty much. But here's the thing about it. This should not have been recognized as his first suspension, because let's not forget, a few years ago, several players were found be, juicing. And A-Rod was interviewed once. He said no. Then he came back, retorted, and said yes, he did when he was in Texas. So Major League Baseball knows he juices, and he's been using HGH and testosterone for a long time. Automatically, for a second suspense, he should get 100 games. But when you start adding in all the lying, the deceit, the denials, everything else, his personality, his arrogance, it just shows one thing. He cheated, and he wanted to make damn sure no one found out. I mean, there's really not a better way to sum it up than to say he cheated, and he did not want nobody else to find out he did it. He went to such incredible lengths to cover his tracks, and got caught. A little piece of paper in a Miami clinic is what did him in. A 211-game suspension, that won't make a difference. I'll tell you why. He can appeal that. He can appeal that, and he can play. Because people will be like, that's a real long suspension. I just better be careful if I'm going to do it. That would be what other players are thinking if they decide to use steroids. He'll appeal, the process will take forever, and he can retire long before he's supposed to serve his ban and his suspension. A lifetime suspension, however, sends a clear and powerful message about not using PEDs. 211 games, the other players that used to be like, I just gotta be real careful. Lifetime ban. Holy shit, I better make sure I don't get caught, which means they won't do it. It sends a clear and powerful message about not using PEDs and about, being clean and making sure you play the game the right way. And the third question is whether the Yankees should play him. I have not come to a decision on whether I think the Yankees should be playing him. Because statistically and technically, yes, they can and they should, but morally they shouldn't. Here's why they shouldn't. They have other things to focus on, like catching teams ahead of them in the AL East. Let the system, do its part. And if he can play later, play him. If his suspension, gets pushed back, or if he doesn't have to serve anything at all, which he still will. If not, well, then don't bring a circus to a slumping and unaspiring team. The reason why they should be allowed to play him is this. You go ahead and you just look at, the AL East and how the Yankees are doing. They're 9.5 games out of place behind the Boston Red Sox. They're fourth in the division. They're minus 18 in their run differential this year. And they're 4.5 games out of a wild card spot. That's a team that needs the edge it can get, Hell, the Pittsburgh Pirates have one of the most anemic offenses in all of baseball. No offense to them. Their pitching staff is phenomenal. But, shoot, they've scored more runs this year than the Yankees. I'll say this, though. If they really do want to win in the near future, they have no choice but to play them and bring the circus around and hope that it sparks their teams offensively. I don't think it's going to do that. I just think it's going to create a big, major circus that surrounds this team and be like a dark cloud following them for the rest of this year. But I don't think it's going to work. You look at what happened in the first game and it's come back today, yesterday. White Sox beat the Yankees 8-1, Didn't inspire much to begin with. But the thing that I found kind of funny with this whole case is, A-Rod was interviewed at one point. Actually, there's two things he was interviewed about. He said, for one, I know no one's going to defend me. I've got to defend myself. Which kind of sums it up better than I think I ever could. He kind of made my job easier there. Think about it. He said, no one's going to defend me. I got to defend myself. That just goes to show how big an asshole you are and that nobody likes you. Yankee fans are about the only people that care for you right now. And they're even starting to wear thin because you have not played at all this calendar year. You've been absolutely invisible in the playoffs the last few seasons. And you're just taking money, you're just getting paid to sit on your ass practically. But the other thing I found even more alarming was the fact he still wants to be a role model, for his daughters and for his fans. Yeah, dude, just no. Run around all these women, juicing to get your stats instead of working your ass off to achieve your goals. That's one thing, but to practically have your have your hands caught in the metaphorical cookie jar, have it slammed shut on you, is a brilliant way to be a role model. Oh my God, it's just sickening this guy still thinks he can be a role model. Lying in the face of all this evidence, it just goes to show how arrogant and how incredibly egomaniacal he is. If you really want, Alex Rodriguez, if you want my advice on how to become a role model, owning up to your great mistakes would be a great way to start. Either that or you can get some popularity by getting thrown out of a frat party with Johnny Manziel.